Dan Ritterband works with the British Israel Communications and Research Centre, and he joins us now to discuss the pros and cons of UK's recognition of a Palestine state, the state of Palestine. Dan, I know you've been working hard on this subject, setting out the reasons why this might happen, the reasons why this is a good idea or a bad idea. What's BICOM's exact position on the UK's planned recognition of a Palestinian state?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Rachel.
It's always a pleasure.
I believe the announcement will come at some point over the weekend, and I believe it's a grave strategic, diplomatic and moral failing on behalf of the UK government. At best, it's little more than a performative gesture, and at worst, it actively works against the UK's stated objective of advancing a two-state solution. And more urgently, it prevents the release of the 48 remaining hostages.
Kemi Badenoch has decried the move to recognise a Palestine state. I mean, this is not the only Western country that's planning to do so or has done so. He says that, Kemi, the Tory leader, says it rewards terrorism. Do you think do you think that Keir Starmer could say that giving a reward for the state of Palestine would disincentivise terrorism?
Well, I think that was the whole problem with the wording of the Prime Minister's statement on the issue in the first place. It actively encouraged Hamas to prolong the war and not to release the hostages. All the conditions were put on Israel, and no conditions were put on the disarmament of Hamas. No conditions were put on the reform of the Palestinian Authority, whose current president is in the 20th year of his 4-year term. There's no conditions on the Palestinians to end their martyrs fund, to pay for slay, or to change their education system so it no longer indoctrinates their young people to hate Jews and Israelis. So all the conditions were clearly put on the wrong side in this conflict.
The son of the Hamas leader has come out with a bit of a zinger of a line about the recognition of Palestine, and it's something like this. October the 7th didn't happen because Palestinians were denied a state. It happened because they were given one. I presume this is a recognition of the Israeli withdrawal completely from Gaza, even to the extent of taking the bodies of the buried from Gaza, leaving Gaza solely to be occupied by Palestinians, with the result that Gaza obviously attacked Israel, their neighbour, on October the 7th. So
He's absolutely right. And this is the big concern of Israelis, is they made sacrifices in 2005. As you say, they withdrew completely from Gaza. To say there was an occupation in Gaza following the bloody civil war that went on between Hamas and Fatah. The Israelis saw exactly from within a few weeks of Hamas seizing power, rockets were started to be fired on Israel territory. So giving up land for peace, which has always been an objective that Israel has done with other warring partners, simply not possible again. So for Israelis who used to believe a two-state solution was possible, after the butcherous attacks on the 7th of October 2 years ago, where is their confidence to think that anything else will happen again other than a repeat of those attacks?
Let's talk about the West Bank. People are saying that any kind of autonomous region with self-determination there is now completely impossible given the number of settlers, or as they say, illegal settlers in the West Bank who are occupying land that is historically a part of the Palestinian birthright. So why could you even recognise a Palestinian state when you have Gaza at war and a West Bank as hold with, Israeli settlements as an Emmental cheese? So what in effect, given that situation, is Keir Starmer purporting to recognise?
And this is another one of the long list of problems with this recognition. The Montevideo Convention, that is the standard applied in international law of what constitutes a state, which is having a fixed population, of having identified borders and fixed borders, a permanent government that is able to represent the citizens in the international arena. Currently, if they're expecting Mahmoud Abbas the current leader of the Palestinians in the West Bank, he's on 86% unpopularity with his own people in the West Bank. His security is as much as Netanyahu's in Israel to prevent factions within the Palestinian society taking out their current leadership. So who is going to lead this Palestinian state? The current leader is a Holocaust denier. This current leader continues with the pay for slay scheme for what they call fallen martyrs. So, under no circumstances under international law does it meet the criteria of a state.
And the Palestinian, or Hamas. I mean, Hamas is a proscribed terrorist group. You can't have Hamas being the head of state of a Palestinian state because they're proscribed. You can't negotiate with terrorists. You shouldn't negotiate with terrorists. The PA and Hamas are at loggerheads anyway. So the idea that there's an authority that could run the Palestinian state seems to me whole below the waterline.
Well, also, the Palestinian Authority have agreed apparently to hosting elections, free and fair elections, within 1 year of this announcement. Now, we've heard that for the last 16 years, and there's not been a single election. And currently the polling in West Bank, Hamas is polling higher than they are in Gaza. So if you open the vote up to everyone, it will happen exactly as happened in 2005. Hamas, or a militant group by another name that wants the destruction of Israel as their sole policy, will be elected to power. Then what do the Western leaders do?
Another quote, just to finish on, from the son of Hamas, Mossab Hassan Youssef, which he says there's no difference. He says about recognition, the vast majority of Palestinians support Hamas. If they didn't have Israel as a common enemy, they would kill each other.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's a lot of clans and factions within society, which is why it's been so difficult over the last 70 years to get some form of peace agreement, because it's not so much that the Palestinians want their own state, they just don't want the Jews to have a state at all.
The problem is not the fact that Palestinians don't have one, the problem is that Israel does. Dan Ritterband, thank you very much for coming on this evening.